Want a little tongue twister? Say monogamy 3 times fast. Monogamy. I did it. I almost did it. Anyway, are humans cut out to be monogamous in their life during their relationships? Joining us now to talk about this issue, which has been widely discussed for a long time, but especially recently, is Pepper Schwartz, a sexologist and professor of sociology at the University of Washington in Seattle, the author of over 50 academic articles, 16 books, including American Couples, The Great Sex Weekend, and Prime, Adventures and Advice on Sex, Love, and These Sensual Years. Okay, so hello, Pepper. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
I appreciate you coming on. Okay, so I think I saw a quote from you saying that you don't believe that humans are, as you put it, a monogamous animal, correct?
Well, I think we're sort of monogamish.
Monogamish?
Yeah. You know, there's many reasons that we toe the line, but not many of them have to do because we think that's the best way to conduct what our urges and desires are. We do it because of our culture, because of the consequences of not being monogamous, of keeping life simple and not dramatic and tumultuous. But in this latest book I did called The Normal Bar, The Surprising Secrets of Extremely Happy Couples, we had some data. This was like 90,000 people that indicated that most people, if they could get away with it and there'd be no consequences, they would do it.
Okay, but did you? Well, I could see that. But do you believe that it is a good thing for structure and for a society to keep things in place and to keep marriages and relationships in place?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we're a very territorial animal. You know, we think non-monogamy might be fine for us, but not for our partner. So, you know, the thing is that, you know, if we have an affair or a fling, you know, we can handle it, we keep it quiet, etc. But if we find out our partner did, most people say either I'm leaving you or there's a big dust up and they have to go to therapy or, you know, it ends up breaking them up. And, you know, that's disruptive, particularly if that goes on and on in people's life, particularly when you have kids. So monogamy is a compromise, but it's probably an appropriate one.
Is there less monogamy today? Are there more affairs today because the divorce rate is much higher today? I mean, people attribute it to more women in the workplace. You know, but not only that there's more affairs, but also divorces, you know, because women want other things, different things than they used to want and all that kind of stuff. The traditional roles are a bit confused and watered down. So what role does monogamy play or not play in separations and breakups and divorces today?
Well, plenty of role. I mean, in the fact that a large number of divorces happen over you know, what people feel is an unfaithful sexual act. Of course, not everybody knows about all of them, so probably more would break up if everybody knew everything. But, yeah, they find out or somebody has a guilty confession. And the thing is that people have a lot more privacy. They have a lot more ways to reach people. I think the Internet has made non-monogamy a whole lot easier. And I think they we live a longer time and we have longer relationships. In colonial days, the average length of life was 37 years old. You don't get bored by 37 if you're going to be dead. So I think the idea of, you know, having been through many phases of life, staying healthy longer, younger, you know, in what you can do and what your sexual drive is longer, that all makes it likelier that things are going to happen. And as you say, women's independence makes it that much likelier, too. You're not going to do anything if you're going to be thrown out on your butt if somebody discovers something and you can't make a living and you can't protect your children and you have no right to them and da-da-da. That's going to, you know, cool your jets. But if none of that's in place, well, more things are going to happen.
Well, of course, laws don't permit, even if, I mean, there's so much, I don't know if it's called no-fault divorce or whatever,
right.
But it doesn't matter if you have an affair. You can't be thrown out on your butt. As a matter of fact, you could have an affair and break up, and you could still, if you're the woman especially, demand and get half of everything. So it's not like it's not easy, but it's not like they'd be destitute. But let me ask you this, and we're talking to Pepper Schwartz, sexologist, author, professor of sociology at the University of Washington in Seattle. What about, you mentioned the role of the internet, making meeting people easier and less monogamous, but what about the Anthony Weiner type of relationships online, over the internet, tweeting out pictures of himself, etc.? First of all, do you consider those kinds of things to be I don't know, non-monogamous? In other words, if you have an affair, an online sexual affair, but you never meet the person, have you broken with monogamy?
Well, I think the usual definition is, would you want your wife or husband to do it? In other words, if most of us would really find it, we probably would find it mentally ill, and we might support our partner getting help because, what he's doing or some of these things are obviously a pretty grave compulsion and very self-destructive. But if we couldn't label it mental illness, we're probably going to label it non-monogamy, because part of what monogamy is not just forswearing all others, in terms of intercourse, but it's forswearing all others in terms of sexual intimacies. And even if it's all just phone sex, it's not what you'd want. It's not what you'd want your partner to be doing. It's a little bit of the do unto others as you would have done unto you. I mean, the fact is that most of us wouldn't like our partner to be doing that. We would consider it unfaithful.
Okay, one more for you. What is the future of monogamy? Of course, you read...
Fragile.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you read so much now about what goes on in colleges. One particular New York Times story, which was about 10 pages long a couple of weeks ago, talked about women. I'm not blaming it on women, but women, for instance, they are too busy to have the traditional relationship. So now it's acceptable to have these hookups where they just have friends with benefits or friends for sex and blah, blah, blah. How does that translate then into the quote-unquote real world once they leave or get a job and are ready for a relationship? Is that going to be a contributor to less monogamy? And again, the general question, based on our society, where is monogamy headed?
Well, as I said, I think it's fragile for all the reasons we've talked about. And I do think people's past, if not predicts their future, certainly influences it. If you get married with only having had one person in your life, the impulse to step out of that is very difficult. I mean, it's a huge, humongous change. But if you've had lots of lovers and you've learned how to think of sex as recreational rather than relational, something that used to be only male but it's now becoming female, well, I mean, you could imagine, a thrill that wouldn't mean as much as your relationship, but you'd still like to have it. So, yeah, I think hooking up, I don't think it destines people to be non-monogamous. I think people get through with the big hooking up stuff by the late 20s. But there's a body memory, like, I'm bored. Well, wouldn't it be fun too? Or, et cetera.
Gotcha. All right, well, very interesting. Give us the name of the new book again.
Oh, it's called The Normal Bar, The Surprising Secrets of Extremely Happy Couples. And there's a lot of sex, romance, and affection in there in terms of how extremely couples do it. And, of course, as you would imagine, they're more monogamous than not happy couples.
Right, and no pictures of Anthony Weiner's private parts, which is a major selling point.
Blessedly not.
All right, Dr. Pepper Schwartz, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Sexologist, professor of science.